Good afternoon. This is Mark's Musings, and we are here at WCTV.org in Wilmington, Massachusetts. This is a podcast that we produce once a month. It lasts about 20 to 30 minutes, and on this podcast we interview local authors and we talk to them about their writing routine and what they have recently written. And today we have with us a wonderful guest by the name of Erica Marchant, who I met at a writers group at the Wilmington Public Library. Welcome, Erica. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. It's been kind of hot weather the last couple of days, and so
Yeah.
it's nice to have be inside with a little AC.
Yes, definitely.
AC. Well, great. I'm glad that you could make it tonight, and we'll talk a little bit about your latest endeavor here and also some of your background. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in writing.
I always answer this question with I think I was born a writer. And I know a lot of writers say that, but I've always just been a writer. I've always written stories since I was a young girl, and I started, writing more when I was in high school, and I wrote for the magazine or the newspaper in high school, and I would submit to contests, and sometimes I would win, sometimes I wouldn't.
Sure,
things like
sure,
that.
sure. So the writing bug was always in you, and you always liked to do that.
Yep.
Did your parents support you in that endeavor, or did you?
Yes, my mom was always very supportive and very proud, and a lot of the stuff I write can be kind of dark. So she would say to me, "Well, why is it so dark?" And then later in life, I read On Writing by Stephen King. And
Yes.
People used to say that to him all the time.
All the time.
So it's like,
Yeah.
don't even think about it.
Well, that's the genre that you're in.
Right.
You like that type of
Right.
writing.
Right.
Very good. So, all right. So you got started like that. Now, did you? Was anything that you wrote earlier published in magazines, or I know you said you wrote for the newspaper, I guess. But
In high school, I did. Yes. So years ago, when I was younger, I published poetry, and that was before the digital age.
Yes.
So I had some literary magazines and anthologies that I had poetry in back
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
many years ago.
Yeah.
And then I didn't for a long time when I started working full time, and
I
I
know.
sort of lost it a little bit.
Yeah, it
So-
this bogs you down, and you don't find time for a lot
Right.
of things you love,
Mhm.
too. Okay, so then I guess you started. Did you, before you joined the writers group, did you actually write something and try to publish it, or did you join the writers group first?
So I was writing before. I'm actually a professional writer. So what I do is I
Yes.
write. I write online content, and I write for clients. And I was writing for a local Boston newspaper, like an online lifestyle magazine.
Oh yes, yes.
And this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And
Okay.
then so I wasn't publishing. I was writing my own stuff, but
Yes.
I hadn't published anything except for a little bit of poetry before I joined the writers group.
Was it technical writing, or is it just that you were writing?
It's not technical writing, it's article, blog writing,
Things like that.
content writing online,
Yeah.
writing for websites,
Okay. Yeah.
a lot of marketing writing, things like
I
that.
noticed that you also help develop websites for people too, I
Yes.
guess. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's part of your...
WordPress website development,
Yeah.
well, design. I should
on
say.
the
I'm not
vi-
a developer, I don't write all the code, but
Yeah. But you get the ideas.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. So then you joined the writers group, and I guess that's the next leap. And
Yes.
you started to write some stories for us and poems, etc., and submit them for critiques. And how did that work out?
So I was excited when I found out Wilmington had a writers group, because I felt I didn't belong anywhere. So, when you're a writer, you're on an island, you're sort of just alone writing all the time. And so it was exciting, and it really jump-started everything for me. As soon as I started submitting critiques to the group and getting feedback, everything changed.
Oh, that was nice, yeah, because then you got direction there,
Yep.
you knew what you were doing right and what
Mhm.
you were doing wrong, and
Right.
or at least you had some idea about that and how people received it, like, you
Mhm.
know, so.
And everybody's so different and unique that you get so much feedback from different areas that, it doesn't overlap, so that's really helpful.
Yes, because in the writers group, we have different people writing different types of stories. Some of them are more dark or light
Mm.
or comedy or
Right.
whatever. So they're kind of all over the place. But it's nice to have that variety there.
Yep.
So I noticed that you had online on about how to write. You had a first book that you sort of published. No, or is that?
I have a book that I'm publishing now. It's out September 13th. It's how to publish
Oh,
a
yes.
multiple author anthology.
Yes, yes.
And that one is on pre-release right now, pre-sale right now.
Oh, good.
For $3.99 for the ebook, and that'll be out September 13th. And I'll have a lot of great resources, and it's a nice how-to guide. I noticed that there were some articles and things like that online about how to do this, but there was not anything comprehensive. So now I'm putting together that comprehensive.
Now, I noticed I read a little bit about that, and how is that different than a normal how-to book about publishing or writing?
So a lot of the how to publish books or how to self-publish books are really about publishing for yourself. How do you put your own book out there, and how do you, deal with your own copyright, and how do you use the self-publishing systems? When you're publishing a multi-author anthology, there's more to it. You have contracts that you have to deal with, and you're accepting submissions from people, so you're reading their work, and the copyright that follows with that. So there's a lot more to it.
Yes.
And a lot of questions, since I've now been in a few anthologies, there's a lot of questions that came up along the way that I'd like to answer in the book.
Well, that sounds super.
And
yeah.
I have a few publishers and writers who I'm interviewing for the book as well, and I'll have a lot of resources in there to help people, so they know where to reach out when they have these questions.
That's wonderful. That's very good, very good. So now let's get to the main event. The book that we're talking about tonight is called On Loss, and you first got this idea. How did this come about?
This was an idea of Aaron Pasker, actually. He's a colleague and a writer friend of mine, and he posted in one of our writing groups that he wanted to create an anthology, and if anybody would be interested. And so I said, sure, I've done an anthology. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's try it. And a couple of other people joined us, and we created we called ourselves the Anthology Team. And we had a lot of meetings, and we had a lot of discussions about what we wanted it to be and what it was about. And it was Aaron who had said that he wanted it to be about loss and like psychological and pain and things like that. So, where could we go from there?
Now, were they local people, or
they aren't? No.
Oh, so that you met sort of online.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We met online. We're from all across America.
The country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very good. So, so then you, I guess, got more serious and decided to write a anthology about loss, and you started to. People started to submit their stories. And so, did you have a lot of stories?
Yeah. So it was. I took on the role of sort of marketing the book, especially through social media, and there was huge interest. I posted in a lot of Facebook groups and a lot of open call groups, and we also put it out on Duotrope, which is a submission site, and we got about a little over 800 submissions.
Oh my God! Yes,
for the book. So it was a lot, and we were very surprised. We weren't sure that we would even get that many.
And how did you weed through all the 800 submissions?
It was a lot of reading.
Yes.
It was a lot of reading. Some of the other members on the team took on the bulk of reading all of the stories, and then it was divided into poetry, short stories, and flash fiction. So we divided it that way, and I read probably 350 pieces of poetry.
Wow. Yes.
And then the stories. It was a lot of reading.
Did you have some kind of a guide to determine whether this made it or didn't make it? Or
we used a rating system, so there were 5 of us initially in the beginning reading the stories and rating them, and we did it on a 1 to 5 scale. So each person rated 1 to 5 how they felt about the story.
Okay.
And anything that came across the board as like a 1 or a 2 was automatically nixed from the lineup.
Sure.
And then anything that was at some of us would rate things all 1s and 2s, like we knew we were on the same page, and sometimes some of us liked stories where others didn't like them as much, so we would have to determine, how to go from there.
Yeah.
And then it was sort of on an average, what was the average for all the ratings.
Okay, yeah.
And then anything above a 3.5 made it into the anthology. Now I noticed that in the book that you have, you listed 30 or 40 names of authors. However, you only have 4 or 5 listed in the beginning of the book. So the beginning of the book lists the 5 of us on the anthology team, as we created the book and we edited the book.
All right, so that's the team.
Yes.
And then the others are the contributors.
Right.
Okay.
So the authors are all listed at the back of the book. Yes. And under each of their stories.
Great. Now, I noticed also that in your listing of the stories, you list just the titles of the stories, but not the author's name.
On the table of contents, you mean?
Yes.
It was a little bit harder to fit, especially where some of the stories were longer. It was a little bit harder to fit the author's names into that.
Okay.
So we just put the stories there. And there are a lot of anthologies that do just the story in the table of contents, and then you find the author's name after.
Yes, yeah. Because I was trying to look for certain author names.
Right.
And couldn't necessarily find that.
In the table of contents.
Table of contents, yeah. So, excellent. So that was quite a feat to be able to read through the 800 submissions and then rate them and finally come down to. So now you have a bulk of how many stories altogether in the book now, or submissions?
I believe it was almost 60 stories, and there were 38 authors total.
Okay.
So a couple of authors have more than one piece in there.
Oh, okay.
So we had determined that we wouldn't accept more than 3 pieces per author. And we had an idea of how big we wanted the book to be.
Okay.
And how many words we wanted it to be. And it's 260 pages.
So right now, each author has about 2 or 3 pieces, or 3 pieces, and
most authors only have one. A few of us have
a couple. Pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And all right. So now, was there a decision on which stories would go first or last, or did you just sort of mix it up, or how did you determine?
Aaron had the idea of trying to coordinate it by size, so that we have short stories, flash fiction, and poetry, and we didn't want all of the large, long stories that were 5,000 words or 8,000 words all lumped together.
Oh, yes.
So it makes it a little bit easier to go through and read.
Space them out.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that sounds one strategy. That
right.
sounds like a good strategy.
So it's not broken up by sections.
Okay. Now, when you say loss, on loss, are there categories of loss?
We weren't specific about what we asked for. We said any genre you can have on loss, anything having to do with loss. There's actually a story in here about a lost sock.
Oh.
So we said if it's if you can send in comedy or horror or fantasy, anything. So when you think of on loss, you think of grief and you think of dying, but not every story is really just about dying or just about grief.
Yes.
Some of the stories are just so amazing in the way that they go about the idea of loss and suffering or pain, and also how hopeful they make you in the end.
Yes. Yes. I noticed that there was that theme in it too. Not only is there grief because you've lost something, but later on there is hope for recovery afterwards, and learning something from the loss that you had too.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about some of the stories that you have submitted to, or any story that you have submitted or a poem, or would you like to read any of them, or?
So when I submitted to the anthology the same way everybody else did. I submitted a couple of pieces, and then I did not rate my own submissions. The other editors on the team did that, and they decided whether they wanted to accept, and they did reject. I had one or two other pieces that they rejected.
Yes.
And so I do have one piece of poetry, one flash fiction, and one short story in there.
Okay.
So the poetry is it's a little bit long, but it's a shorter piece than the flash fiction and short story.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
And then I do submit outside of my own self-publishing, and I was accepted with Down in the Dirt magazine for a prose piece this year.
Nice.
And I was rejected a lot too, so
I
that
know,
happens.
I know. We always go
Take
back.
it in stride.
We always go back to Stephen King telling us about all the rejections
Right.
that he got.
That's
and
okay. Yeah.
wanting to quit. And
Yep. Never give up.
Never give up is right. Yeah. So, how about telling us pick one story and tell us just a little bit about it.
So the short story is titled Confused, and that takes you on a journey with the main character who is essentially confused. She wakes up, she doesn't know where she is, or we're not really sure if she wakes up, but she becomes aware of herself, and she doesn't know what's happening around her. And I take the reader on the journey with her. The idea is for you to also be confused by what's going on.
Oh, okay.
And she comes to terms with what's happened to her and where she is towards the end of the story. And near the end, I jump point of views to a new character that comes in, who happens to be her husband, and you see it a little bit from his eyes.
Okay.
So I don't know if I want to give away all of the
Yeah,
details.
yeah. No. So that's good. So that's
Right.
one of the stories there.
Right.
Yes. I read one of your stories about the young boy who was very rejected by his father for quite a long time. Then he joined a wrestling team and was sort of felt a little bit more redeemed by his father at that time. But then he had some kind of a disorder that he started to lose weight, and that was kind of interesting. Did you remember that story a little bit? Or?
Yes, that's Checkmate by Chad Bowman,
Yeah.
and I did some developmental editing on that story with him, and it's a sad story, but it's a heartfelt story too.
Yes,
And
yeah.
he has he's in his 20s now, the main character of the story, and he has an eating disorder.
Yes, okay.
And he's continually losing weight throughout the story, and so it discusses that tension in the relationship between himself and his father and his mother, and
His mother, yeah.
how he senses their life because of it. And it's set in the 80s, so it's
Okay.
not set in modern day,
Modern time. Yeah, modern day,
which
yeah.
makes it interesting as well.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's a good one.
That I enjoyed reading that one. Trying to think what else now. How did you self-publish the book, or did you go to a regular publisher, or how did you decide who to publish?
So we did self-publish the book, and we have it published by us as the anthology team. Our names are in there as the publishers, and we did that through KDP on Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing on Amazon.
Oh, great,
And
yeah.
that was a pretty good experience. We made the cover ourselves. I did the cover design with a photographer that we got a photo from, and I manipulated the cover design and did all that. And so
That's a learning experience
It
in
is.
itself, yes, because I heard your conversation about that with some of the writers group about how to get the resolution of the picture just right, so that you wouldn't lose anything.
Right. And then Amazon rejected the print cover because the title on the spine was too big So we had to go back and fix that, and that took some time.
To do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you're ever self-publishing with KDP, and Amazon has to approve the book
Yeah.
before they'll release it. So that takes time.
I remember one of the first stories that I published through Amazon. I just quickly decided to say, yes, that's fine, and before I knew it, I said, yeah, now send me the proof copy. Well, I got the proof copy back. It was a 6x9
Right.
book, but the print was only 2 inches by 2 inches in the corner of a page. And I said, what did I do there? You know?
What happened?
And it was 300 pages of blank, but only one little corner was.
Right.
I said, "Wow, I didn't look at that too closely." Yeah, so
Right.
you do. It is. I'm glad you get a proof copy because
Right.
you can at least catch it in
Ahead of
that.
time.
Yeah, ahead of time.
It can be hard to format a book yourself.
It is,
There's a lot that
especially
goes.
when you don't know anything about it, you
Mhm.
know, and you're just learning as you go anyway. So,
Right.
so that was good. So, you've published it as an ebook and a paperback.
Yes.
So, how did you decide on the cost of the book, and is there a range of
I
thing
did a little
costs?
research and discussed with the team, and everybody agreed. We came up with a range of prices based on what we saw for other anthologies out there,
Okay.
and based on the size of the book.
Oh, okay.
And something that was reasonable.
Sure.
We weren't publishing this with the aggressive idea that we'll sell millions of copies and make all kinds of money. So we want people to buy it, but we didn't want to price it too low.
You didn't want to give it away.
Yeah,
either,
we didn't want to give it away.
Yeah.
And it undervalues not only us on the anthology team, but all the authors who work so hard on their stories.
Sure, that's a great idea.
So-
Yes. So that's great. So you decided. Now, did you have an editor too, or was it just yourselves that did the editing?
We joined forces as an editing team, so we had one person edit, and then we had a final edit, and then we did a final proofreading copy at the end. And once we had what was the finished copy, we sent it back out to the authors to review their stories to make sure that there was nothing caught or missing.
Sure.
We had a couple of things come back, and we fixed that, but otherwise,
That's good. So you self-published, and you had a team to do the editing for you, so you were able to catch a lot of stuff that
Right.
might have gone through, and then you took you to help design, or you designed the cover,
Mhm.
and you had a lot of some help with doing that and making sure that was all up to par. Now, if we wanted to take a look at your book, and where would we find it? Is it on Amazon.com or
Yep.
Kindle or?
The book is on Amazon.com, so it's a Kindle book and an ebook, and we only have it there right now. We haven't published it through any other channels.
So we look it up, we'd say under your name, or under the On Loss is the title of the book, Amazon.com, or under your name, Erica Marchant.
Right. And there's also a website, ourlossanthology.com. So before we came up with the official title, we had Our Loss Anthology.
All one word,
All one word.
OurLossAnthology.com.
.com, right? And so you can find it on there.
Oh, that's
And I'll
easy.
promote it on my own website, and
And what's your website?
ericamarchant.com.
All one word.
All one word, yeah.
EricaMarchant.com.
Yes.
Very good. So, I think you've done I think I've read quite a few of the stories, and there were a variety of ideas, all with the central idea of loss, but they were all different, and they're all very interesting, and some of them are very heart-wrenching too. So,
Thank you. The team worked really hard on putting this together. Lots of late hours and conversations and meetings and
can imagine.
Yes.
Now, when you met online, did you have like a group? Did you one-on-one, or did you have a group meeting online, like a webinar or something?
we did everything through Facebook. Actually, we created a central group for ourselves as the business side of the anthology. We also created a Facebook group for all of the authors who wanted to join and submit. And then we discussed everything through Messenger, and Messenger actually allows you to make group phone calls, and so we didn't have to do any outside services
Good.
to be able to connect. It was very simple
Oh, wow.
and easy.
Yeah. So a lot of it, though, was with text, messaging back and forth, but
Yep.
then you could also...
Yep, we had group phone calls when we really needed to,
Yeah.
brainstorm.
Very, very good. Very good. I see our cameras are still working here a little bit here. So I think we've sort of covered a lot of things here, so I'm not too
Yes.
sure there are any other points that you want to make, because we're sort of running to the end of the program here, or you want to...
Thank you so much for having me on
Yes,
this.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's always great to talk with you. You're always full of ideas, and I like listening to you at the writers group
Thank you.
meetings, and because you always have something interesting to say. So, but I guess we have come to the end of the program here. Remember, this is Mark's Musings, and we are here at WCTV.org in Wilmington, Massachusetts, and we simultaneously broadcast on YouTube and on SoundCloud. And the program is about 20 minutes in length, and you can listen to us while you're riding the bike or jogging, or whenever you're not trying to participate too much in anything serious. You can listen to us with some headphones on. And with that, I'd like to say good night to our listeners, and I'd like to thank Erica for coming tonight and talking with us. And I wish her luck with this new book, and I think it's going to be a great hit, and I think people will get a lot out of it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. With that, we'll say goodbye. Bye-bye now.